Before I get started, I do consulting on where you can move. I'll work with you to find the perfect place for you to move to. There's more information at the end of the video about that. Now let's get started. Is Northern California cold? Is Northern California expensive? Is Northern California a bunch of ghetto areas and homeless people mixed in with farms, rednecks, and snobby people who don't pay their taxes? We're going to answer those questions and a whole lot more. So it's time to get out our Teslas and spark up a fatty. We're going to unbox Northern California. Oh, look at this. It's another homeless encampment. You're going to find a lot of those here in Northern California. In some parts of this region, it seems like everybody's homeless. You can understand why. It's super expensive here, and California has the highest cost of living of any state. There's more people in relative poverty here in California than any other place in the U.S. But many of these people aren't homeless because they can't afford rent. Many are addicts, have mental illness, or just want to live without rules. And this state encourages it. Northern California is going through a big change right now, and it's not a good change. That's why there's a lot of people leaving this part of the state. Many will never come back. But Northern California is more than just homeless people, forest fires, drug users, and entitlement. There's pretty beaches, snow-capped mountains, rednecks, and Asians. Lots and lots of Asians. Not many Asian rednecks, though. That's a shame. Northern California is quite a unique place, and you might be thinking about moving here one day. I think it's a terrible idea, but I'm here to help nonetheless. So to get a complete look at Northern California and understand this area, we need to visit each part of this state so we know what's what, where's where, and who's who. Now there might be a mini debate as to where Northern California begins, but I think it's fair to draw the line here, right at Santa Cruz. Anything else lower along the coast is widely considered Central California. Fresno certainly is Central California, right? So it's these 48 counties that make up the northern third of the state. Therefore, this is Northern California, or NoCal, as people call it around here. As you can see, there's a lot to discover. There's about 15 million people in this area, making it more populous than all but 4 U.S. states. We're going to begin over here in Santa Cruz.
Of gleaming white sand, the modern little city of Santa Cruz still retains the flavor of its historical past. It was on Monterey Bay that one of the early Spanish settlements was made, and even conquest by Russia is included in the turbulent history of the Bay Area.
Santa Cruz still has that hippie vibe to it, but it's really changed a lot. It's more homeless hippies now. There's a lot of rocky cliffs along this stretch of the coast. It's also much cooler here than the beaches of Southern California. It's super pretty up here. Central and Northern California beaches are much more chill and laid back than the beaches down south. Many are somewhat inaccessible. If you thought the Pacific was cold in LA, up here the water's even colder, pal. You can see whales sometimes. Anyways, here in Santa Cruz, it's a solid mix of stoners, surfers, and snobs. You don't have to go very far to get to the farmland of California. Just hop over a little mountain and you're in Gilroy. They grow garlic here. Well, they grow lots of other things, but they're pretty much known for growing garlic. It used to be all Mexicans and farm workers, but people are fleeing the Bay Area and moving here now. It's not too bad a place. It's not very exciting. That's pretty much how it is all over this whole area, actually. Cross over the mountains and it's all farmland and small, poor farm towns. You wouldn't want to live here. Or maybe you would, especially if you're Hispanic.
My family works in the fields. See?
I'm sure they do, Juan. What kinds of things do they pick?
Tomatoes, strawberries, avocados, lemons, grapes, blueberries, almonds.
Great. We appreciate your hard work. Without it, we wouldn't have so much cheap produce. Thanks, Juan. As you leave the northern Central Valley, you come to the Sierra Mountains. It's super pretty out this way. It's mostly just small mountain towns with California mountain rednecks. There's many different breeds of California redneck. The Sierra rednecks are far different than their northern kin. Down here, they're far more sophisticated. And there's lots of forest fires up here too. You wouldn't want to live here. Your home might be gone one day. Thanks, PG&E. As you cross the Sierras and get to the Nevada state line, you have Old Highway 395. It's really pretty out this way. It kind of looks like Iceland. Big tall mountains on one side and a big desert on the other side. Independence, Big Pine, Bishop, a bunch of really laid-back modern saloon towns. There isn't much here. A bunch of dirt, some hotels, places to get tackle and ammo, a few bars and restaurants. It's kind of touristy-ish. You could call these all hick towns, and they couldn't argue about it. Mammoth Lakes is probably the best place to ski for like 500 miles. You can't afford to live here. It's really pretty here, though. This is Yosemite National Park. There's a bunch of Yosemite trees here that sadly will one day burn down. It's also very touristy and hot in the summer. When I step into the poopy streets, 'cause NoCal is so crazy, where all the bums all live for free, 'cause NoCal is so crazy. NoCal is so crazy. Weed is a guarantee. NoCal is so crazy. It should fall into the sea. If you cross back over the mountains back into the valley, you come to some larger cities. Merced and Turlock are here, as well as Modesto. Modesto is basically a poor place filled with homeless people and drug users. No, it's not that bad, but kind of bad. Lots of poorer Bay Area people have moved in here these days. Same with Stockton, but Stockton's on another level with crime and drugs and homeless. Stockton might be one of the worst places you can live in California. The downtown's uneventful and uninspiring, and there's really bad areas all over the place. Don't ever move to Stockton. Repeat after me. Do not move to Stockton. Then we come to Sacramento, the state capital. Yay! Sacramento's too being overwhelmed with homeless people and drug use, but it's not nearly as bad as Stockton. This is where California makes all its terrible laws. The south side's the town's dangerous part, but there's rough areas all over. It's cheaper here than it is in a lot of the other big cities in the state. There's 500,000 people here, so it's not very small. And it's growing kind of fast here because it's not really very expensive. And you can get away from all the BS in the Bay Area we're going to talk about soon. Over here's Davis. There's a college here. There's a lot of liberals and cows everywhere. There's far worse places you can live in the region. Placerville's nearby at the base of the mountains where it's pretty and outdoorsy. Again, more rednecks, Confederate flags, and meth. You probably didn't think California had so many trashy people, did you? And over here is Lake Tahoe, everyone. Ooh!
This is our mountain home at Tahoe Paradise, located in the peaceful Tahoe Valley on the southern tip of Lake Tahoe. We're rather proud of our development here. It was conceived especially for people like us.
Lake Tahoe's a gem. There's a lot of super wealthy people who are out of touch with the rest of the world up here. You can't afford it. On the other side of the state line are trashy Nevada gambling joints. Moving north, we come to Truckee. It's kind of a touristy town where a bunch of firefighters live. Again, more rednecks, people. It used to be really pretty and laid back here, but the wildlife's getting ruined and the Bay Area snobs are running out the good old boys. All of this is basically smallish desert communities along the Nevada state line. It's cheap here, but it's either really too cold or too hot. No homeless people though, so that's good. Yet. Now way up here is maybe the prettiest part of California. Everything along the Oregon state line is bears, bald eagles, trees, mountains, and rednecks. Stop at a gas station in Wairika and you'll see 5 dudes in head-to-toe camos sipping coffee in the parking lot leaning against their pickups. Don't mess with these people. They have a lot of pride and they have guns and they love them some Trump. Good people. Crescent City over here is basically the last place you can stop before you get to Oregon. It's a small community right on the water. It's really pretty and really remote and you have to worry about tsunamis all the time. But it is not a good place to live, people. Just south of that's Humboldt County. This is where they used to grow weed. I mean, they still grow it here, but it's legal now, so it's not as cool to live here. Watch Murder Mountain on Netflix if you want to know what it's like here in Humboldt County. I mean, it's really pretty and remote, but there's a lot of meth use. If you lived here, you'd have to worry about getting your stuff stolen or your house burning down or dying in a mudslide. But hey, everybody knows everybody. Eureka's here. It's a drug and crime infested shithole with dope houses on every block. South of that's Mendocino County. It's more expensive here and there's less poverty and there's less people. It too has a pot growing culture. Next to Mendocino is Lake County. Woo-wee! You want to talk about some redneck heaven. The unofficial capital of Lake County is Clear Lake, where you'd find a lot of that old biker crank. There's nothing to do here but collect welfare, drive a four-wheeler, and meth. That's it. Further inland's Redding. It's a conservative redneck place. It's racist and hot in the summer, like 120 degrees hot. Don't move to Redding. You might start using meth. And meth is bad, kids. Red Bluff isn't much better. It's one of the most dangerous places in the state per capita. Don't move to Red Bluff. Now down here is Napa. This is where they grow a lot of grapes for wine. It's pretty hot and boring and there's fires all the time. It's a mix of rich snobs, Hispanic workers, and blue-collar folks who hate the other two groups. You don't want to live here. You can get your wine at Lucky's.
If I lived in Napa, I drink only the finest wines.
No, if you lived in Napa, you'd be a poor drunk. You don't know anything about fine wine, Karen. We're getting to the Bay Area now, people. First, we're going to go to the South Bay. This is San Jose. It's super expensive, and just about everyone's Asian. There's actually more than 1 million people here now. It's really crowded, but it's really safe, except for the east side. Homeless people are moving in and kind of ruining some parts of San Jose, but it's really not that bad. The north and west sides are where all the tech snobs live. Next door is the Silicon Valley. Yay! Los Gatos, Mountain View, Cupertino, Redwood City, Atherton, Menlo Park, Palo Alto. It's all Google, Apple, Facebook, YouTube. You know, rich kids who probably all got B's in high school. You can't afford it. They can barely afford it. But it's really nice and new and safe and fake. Stanford's here, if that says anything. Half Moon Bay is snobby rich people. You can't afford it. Now across the San Francisco Bay is Fremont. It's an overpriced suburb for families. It's safer than a lot of other Bay Area cities. Pleasanton is pretty much the same, just a quiet, overpriced bedroom community. Hayward is a less nice version of those two, but it's getting worse because it's next to San Leandro, which touches Oakland, which means it's infected with gross. Walnut Creek and Concord are basically snobby rich people who commute into the Bay Area and live in big, fancy, overpriced homes. All the kids up here say, hella, you can't afford it. It's nice though. Now we cross the mountains one more time and we come into the East Bay. This is Berkeley. Berkeley used to be all hippies who were free thinking, but now it's filled with a bunch of liberals who will tell you what to do and get mad when you express your views unless they're everyone else's views. Kind of ironic, right? So it's changed a lot here. A bunch of smart kids live here who have no real world perspective except for what they read in books. You can't afford it. The homeless love it here, and the bleeding hearts in town give them lots of bread from the fancy health food market. Right next door is Oakland. Now, if you've watched other videos I've done, you'll know Oakland might be the most rundown, lawless place in the nation. It's just really dangerous. The police are outnumbered and they're afraid to pull anybody over anymore. Most of it's ugly, trashed, and there's homeless people everywhere. If you move to Oakland, you're a straight up fool. The east side's mostly all Hispanics. It's really dangerous. The west side's mostly black, and it's really dangerous.
That's not nice, Nick. There's a lot of great people in Oakland.
Oh, I know, Mappy. I have family in the area. There's some good people in Oakland, but it seems like the good, productive people in Oakland just don't get involved in help anymore. It's like Oakland doesn't have any pride anymore. Oh my God, Mappy! Take cover! Run! Gunshots! Oh God. Okay, we got out of Oakland. That was close. Okay, so this is Richmond, which is just north of Oakland. It's maybe even more dangerous than Oakland is. Yep, look, there they go, stealing again. And I bet they won't even get prosecuted. Now we're going to cross the bridge one more time and come into the heart of San Francisco, our last stop. Everything here from San Mateo, Burlingame, Millbrae to San Bruno is also way overpriced, but mostly safe. It's fairly family friendly and gentrified with lots of successful, nice immigrant families. Lots of Jamba Juices, Pete's Coffees, and Trader Joe's. You can't afford it. They aren't as snobby as the people in the Silicon Valley, though, so that's good. And then we come to San Francisco. My, we could do a whole video on San Francisco. Well, I have, like 10. The south end of town is much more dangerous and run down, where the homeless have taken over. But as you get further north on the peninsula, it gets more wealthier and much more nice. Half this city's just fine. It's just way overpriced, and there's a lot of people who are snooty and out of touch. But it's a tech hub, and there's certainly plenty of culture here. It's far less run down than in Oakland. But you have to make $1 million a year to live here if you want to live in a decent area, and you'll get your car windows smashed every time you go out for pho. Say it with me. You can't afford it. Well, that's a quick rundown in Northern California. Of course, we left out a lot of places. I can't cover them all, but hey, that was a pretty good look at things, right? Right. You probably expected a lot of snobs and overpriced homes and a lot of drugs. But did you know there were so many conservatives up here and so many rednecks? Probably not. All the mountains and beaches and forests, it can be a really nice place to live. Northern California has a lot of great areas. You just have to know where to look. Sadly, it may never be as good as it once was, but I don't think anything in this country is the way it once was. When I step into the poopy streets, 'cause NoCal is so crazy, where all the bums all live for free, 'cause NoCal is so crazy. NoCal is so crazy. Weed is a guarantee. NoCal is so crazy. It should fall into the sea. Yes, it should. It's a crazy place, people. Northern California. You never know what you're gonna see. Tweakers running all through these hills. NoCal is so crazy. Necks and snobs fighting over pills. NoCal is so crazy. NoCal is so crazy. The liberals are just so mean. NoCal is so crazy. Weird is always guaranteed. Do you have an opinion on Santa Cruz at all?
I mean, it used to be a pretty nice place. I mean, I know there is a lot of homeless people and rich people, but I mean, that's kind of all in Northern California. There's like a lot of homeless people everywhere, man. I mean, you can't really go anywhere without there being like a giant tent city of homeless people. So, but yeah. I thought Santa Cruz was a nice place, a nicer place. It's nicer than San Francisco or, you know.
Okay, so like Modesto and Stockton, how have those places changed in your opinion?
I mean, more homeless people, a lot of meth. I mean, there's a lot more like gang members and stuff. I mean, Stockton's always been kind of sketch, and Modesto, you know, I mean, it's all kind of just like hot and dirty. I mean, you know, like Central Valley's brutal, man. It's just so hot and sunburnt and dirty, and a lot of like Mexican gang members and a lot of meth, a lot of drug trafficking, you know, like Highway 99. It's horrible. It's just like farmland, little small town. I don't know. It's
nowhere anybody would want to move to.
No, the Central Valley, and that's like probably like one of the cheapest places you could move, like to California, one of those towns, but I wouldn't want to live there. It's just like flat and hot, and I mean, dirty. Brutally hot.
Yeah. It is. There's nothing exciting about it.
Mm-mm.
And it's getting worse all the time. Now, Sacramento, I haven't been in a long time. I've only been there one time. I need to go back. It seems like it's less dirty and dangerous and ghetto than like Modesto, Stockton, like the rest of the sort of the Central Valley. But I haven't been in a long time. Do you have an opinion on how Sacramento is these days?
Yeah, I drove through Sacramento maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. And actually on my way here to Tulsa, I drove through Sacramento. And when I used to drive through it, there used to be a lot of homeless people underneath the bridges. Like when you're going down I-5 and you're like driving right through Sacramento and there's all those overpasses and stuff, there was like a lot of homeless people under the bridges. And I noticed this time when I was driving here to Tulsa, there were no homeless people under the bridges. So I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, I don't know where they moved them, but they're not right underneath the overpasses anymore. That's like a thing, like with my kids, like whenever we would go under overpasses, we're always like looking for homeless people, where's the homeless camp? But I didn't see any in Sacramento. And like, I mean, it seemed like for a while it was like tent city under the bridge.
Yeah, they move around. I know they're there. People have been telling me that they're everywhere. I think it's worse than ever. But they move around all the time. They'll sweep them out and they'll stick them somewhere else, or they'll skedaddle and all of a sudden they're in a park and then they start moving to the neighborhoods and then they're back to the highways again. They move around. So you probably just didn't see them.
Yeah, they weren't under the bridge anymore. So
yeah, but Sacramento, it's not as bad as Stockton and Fresno.
No, Stockton, Fresno. Oh man, yeah, I've spent a lot of time in Fresno. Fresno's rough.
It is.
Yeah.
San Jose seems to be still a good place to be, right? I mean,
when you look at the data, it's like one of the safest cities in the country with over 500,000 people. Like last I saw, it was second to Honolulu, so could do a lot worse. There are some parts of East San Jose that are a little rough. Still, though, it's like you drive around them and it doesn't like make your skin crawl. But there's still places that like you wouldn't want to be out alone at night. But nothing in East San Jose is really that bad compared to bad areas in other cities. Mm-hmm. The Willow Glen area is really nice. A lot of Almaden and South San Jose is really nice. Like good neighborhood feel, even if you're in a larger city. So the only knock on San Jose is compared to a lot of big cities, there isn't a ton to do.
Yeah, I mean, clearly there's a lot of places. There's a lot of Jamba Juices and Pete's Coffees, but so give people an idea on. I found the far northern part of the state, right on the Oregon state line, up under Klamath Forest. You've got Wairika. You've got this really pretty part of the state where it's really green. It's really conservative. Small towns, lots of rednecks, lots of camouflage. What's your perspective on that part of the state way up there along the Oregon state line?
I mean, it's really beautiful, like Siskiyou up there by like Wairika and Happy Camp. There's a lot of rednecks. There are a lot of conservatives and rednecks, but there's also like a lot of Native Americans, who have like lived in those places forever. And fish, and like a lot of people still like who live off of the land, like I've met people who've lived there who their family's Native American and they go back forever and they still like hunt mushrooms and they can net salmon out of the river, and like salmon's like a big part of it. And then like there is like a large underground like criminal element out there too, because you're so far out in the woods. Like, I mean, it's pretty much lawless. Like you can't call the cops. There's a lot of like the Eastern Europeans and the Asians and the Mexicans, and the white dudes, the rednecks, just growing a lot of weed out there and just trafficking a lot of drugs. But I guess that's the whole state. But out there, it's really isolated. There isn't much out there at all. Mm-hmm. We used to go camping when I was a kid. We used to go to Happy Camp and go camping.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. What about Crescent City?
Crescent City. Crescent City. Well, Crescent City is known. I guess they have Pelican Bay State Prison there. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. Actually, Charles Manson was up there for a while. And it's like most of the people who live in that town work at the prison. And there's a large Native American population there as well. It's smaller than Eureka. It's got the same types of problems. But again, it is beautiful. I mean, like, I feel like a lot of the locals who live in these areas kind of take the beauty for granted. But Crescent City has a huge drug problem, bunch of homeless people. Pelican Bay State Prison's the biggest employer up there, and I mean that's like where they send the worst of the worst. They're like Charles Manson was there. There's YouTube videos of prison riots breaking out and stuff. So it's kind of a depressing place sometimes. There's not a lot of sun up there. You know, sun doesn't shine too much. It's really gray.
Yeah, and it's in such a pretty area too, and it sounds like it would be such a beautiful place, Crescent City, but it's pretty dumpy.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's yeah, not a lot of sun there either, man. Near the northern coast, it's just gray all the time. You get like 2 months of sunshine.
Mm-hmm. Now, you know a lot about Humboldt County, and I know that you lived in Eureka for a long time. Can you give people an idea on what it's like in Humboldt County?
Humboldt County. Well, Humboldt County, it is a very beautiful place. It's a good place to go if you want to isolate yourself, if you're trying to escape, if you're on the run from the law and you need to go hide. Humboldt County is a great place. Eureka is like, has a lot of beautiful Victorian homes and stuff, but like with the laws they've passed in California with like not putting people in jail for possession of drugs or like raising the shoplifting limits, Eureka is pretty bad. I mean, when I was a kid, used to be able to like go outside and run around, and like you wouldn't really see the tweakers or the junkies. You know, they're all scared to get arrested, so they just kind of hide in their house. But the drug use there is rampant, and I mean they call it your tweaka, you know, and it's I mean there are some historical beautiful homes there, and like there used to be a big logging industry and there was a big fishing industry, and then like a lot of environmentalists and stuff came in and they stopped all that. And then so the rednecks and the hippies, they started growing pot, and like that was a big thing there for a long time. And then they legalized pot, and now it's just gotten worse and worse. And like I look in the news all the time, and it's like the amounts of drugs they bust these people with in this small town of 30,000 people. I mean, I don't even see that happening here in Tulsa in the news. It just blows my mind.
So weed's legal now. I know Humboldt County was always a place where they would do illegal pot grows. It was like Humboldt and Mendocino counties where like weed grows really well there because of the climate or whatever, and you could hide it back in the hills. And now pot's legal in California. So what are they doing in Humboldt County now? Like the drug use is worse. Like are they switch the type of drugs that they're making? Is it meth labs? Like,
no, there isn't necessarily meth labs. I mean, there's meth labs. There's just like trafficking of methamphetamine and fentanyl and black tar heroin. Just, I mean, it comes from, you know, straight up from down south into Humboldt County. And there's a lot of drug trafficking and drug selling. And I see people I went to school with and stuff, and I get busted in the paper all the time. And it's just a lot of fentanyl and heroin and meth, and a lot of the people who did make a lot of money growing pot, they left. You know, people kind of like cashed out, you know, kind of like I did. I sold my house and cashed out and said goodbye California, and it just isn't really safe, and it isn't really a safe place. But if you're a criminal or a drug dealer, it's like nirvana. Like you can do whatever you want. That, you know, they don't even arrest you. So,
yeah. What's the difference between, if you were going to explain the difference between Humboldt County, which is north, and then Mendocino County, which is the next county south. What's the difference between the two in terms of culture? I know that I think Mendocino is more expensive to live and it's less drug infested and less like tweakery, but is that true?
A little less, only because the population is less. I mean, like Lake County is pretty similar, you know. Mendocino is more expensive just because the closer you get to San Francisco or the Bay Area, it just gets more expensive, you know, and the further north you go and the further you get away from civilization is just the cheaper it gets out there. I feel like Mendocino isn't like Ukiah is the county seat of Mendocino, and it isn't as dirty as Eureka. I wouldn't feel like that. It isn't nearly as bad, but it's still bad. Not nearly as bad as Eureka though. Mendocino has a lot less people.
Okay. Yeah. Now Redding, I always imagined Redding as being a place that was more rural and I guess seemed like it was going to be, growing up as a kid, really pretty place up in the hills and the mountains at the end of the state. But Redding's a straight up dump. I mean, it's hot. It's dirty. There's tweakers and, you know, good boys and, you know, a lot of conservative redneck, a lot of racism up in Redding. Redding is not a happy place to be.
That's just like Eureka. It's the same thing. Like there's some really, really racist people in Humboldt, Shasta County. I mean, it's I've met people from the South when I lived in Eureka, and they said they've met the most racist people in their lives in Northern California. Redding is really dirty too, and it's hot. And Redding is like where people from Humboldt County will go to get in the sun.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's where the tweakers in the hills come down to get out of the clouds and
go see the sun. And then the people from Redding like to go to Eureka to see the ocean and cool down. It's kind of always been like that.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. I've only been to Redding once. We drove through. It was 121. It was in August. We were on our way up to the Redwoods or Joshua Tree or not Joshua Tree, Yosemite or whatever we were going to, Klamath, I think. And yeah, it was 121. And like, I'm like, this is Northern California. Like you would think we were in like the middle of the Nevada desert. I did not know it got so hot up there.
Yeah, it's high desert and it's pretty much the beginning of the Sacramento Valley. And yeah, it's hot. I used to hate it up there when I was a kid. I used to go there every summer and visit my family and I hated it. It's hot, and there's a lot of homeless people and a lot of tweakers there too. It's a pretty similar situation to Eureka.
Yeah, a lot of people would be surprised to hear that there's so many rednecks and conservatives and good old boys in California. You think of California as being, people that don't live in California might think of it as being like a bunch of rich snobby people or a bunch of like liberals or a bunch of like gangbangers or a bunch of like Hispanics, but there's a big, strong redneck conservative culture in Northern California. In fact, a lot of the outer ring, anything outside of the Bay Area is pretty conservative up there.
Yeah, for the most part, there are a lot of hippies up there in Humboldt. I mean, it's like the number one place for like organic food and all that stuff. So it's but there are a lot of rednecks. I mean, my dad was a redneck. My grandpa was a massive redneck. They used to hunt and fish and go bottle digging and all this kind of stuff. And there's really, really racist people in Humboldt County. I mean, especially when and you'd be surprised too. But I'd say in Eureka there's a good mix. It used to, like, back in the day, like in the 80s, it was like just a bunch of rednecks. And then the hippies came. And then when they did the medical marijuana thing, it drew up a lot of bad people, like a lot of criminals and stuff like that. But like, yeah, there's a lot of rednecks. There's a lot of conservatives, a lot of racism. because the majority of those two places is mostly all white people. So
Yeah. What do you think the future of Northern California is going to be? Not necessarily the Bay Area. I think everybody knows where that's headed, with the crime and the lawlessness and the overpriced BS. But what about the rural parts of Northern California? Where do you think that's going to head in the next 10, 20 years?
You know, it's sad to say, but it's all kind of headed the same direction, really. I mean, I watched it get really expensive where I lived, and it used to be the cheapest place you could go north of San Francisco, and even it's just like super expensive, and like there's gonna have to be some serious change that I don't see coming, like with laws being passed and stuff, and like, I mean, they have to steal like $1,000 worth of stuff to even go to jail. And where I live, they won't even take you to jail for it. They just book and release. And I don't know. I mean, it's really hard saying. It's kind of why I left. I didn't really see anything good going on there in the next 10 or 20 years. There definitely was going to be no chance for my children to be able to buy a house. And I mean, where are you going to go? I mean, you're going to go to Sacramento or the Bay Area or up to Portland. I mean, there isn't really anywhere to go from there, and as far as, cost of living and dealing with the crime and stuff. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to be going anywhere good. I mean, even with the legalization of marijuana, they did it all wrong. And yeah. So
It's a shame. I mean, there's a ton of really pretty areas up there, small towns where you probably can't get a job, but you can have a cheap life.
Yeah.
But it's not feasible for most people. You could retire in Northern California and be just fine.
Oh yeah.
You're part of society, and you want to be, you have to be close to things. That is not a place that you could be. It's not very family friendly up there at all.
No, not at all. Like if you just want to go up there and retire and you want to get away from people, like it's good, but still, like, don't leave anything in your car and lock your doors, because it's just, there's a lot of tweakers and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, as far as like a family or like a job, like, I mean, you can go work at the prison up there in Crescent City.
You could be a firefighter. I know they're short on those, and that's going to be a year long job at some point, year round position.
Yep.
Place is going to burn down one day.
Wildfires. Yep. Red skies.
So Fremont, Pleasanton, Hayward, all the way up to San Leandro. How would you describe that area? And is there a difference between the three of those?
Yeah, I'd group Fremont in more with like Newark, Union City. Fremont in particular, it's really big now. It's over 200,000 people. Fremont has a huge South Asian community, huge Indian community, huge Afghan community. Pretty nice place to raise a family. A lot of good restaurants, obviously a lot of good Indian restaurants. Not a super exciting place, but decent variety of restaurants and things like that to keep you going. The one impression I have of like Fremont, Union City, Newark is that it's like a lot of planned communities that all have houses with like 5-digit addresses. And then Hayward is kind of similar to San Leandro. Not great, not terrible. Like, you're probably safe there, but you wouldn't be shocked if you hear police sirens once in a while, neighbors being idiots, blowing up fireworks and stuff. But they're not terrible places to live, and they're close to everything. San Leandro's actually got a really cool little brewery scene that's on the upswing. Mm-hmm. And then Pleasanton and that whole 680 corridor is pretty upscale. It's, if you can, if you don't mind hotter summers, Pleasanton all the way up 680 up through like Walnut Creek, that's probably some of the best you can do in terms of looking for, community things for kids to do. You got lots of parks and pools, lots of good youth programs. Pleasanton, San Ramon, another area that's got really large Indian community that's been growing very quickly. A lot of new housing developments out that way, and it's like you drive by on 580 or 680 and you see the housing developments going up. It's like, that's why the traffic's getting worse and worse here. Like, taking 580 out to the Central Valley is a nightmare, and I don't know how people commute from like Tracy or Stockton every day into the Bay Area. I mean, it's tied up by like 4:30 in the morning. There are people that do this every day.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I know that's why a lot, and I think that area is where BART ends too. So
BART ends out at Pleasanton. Like, Dublin Pleasanton is the end of the line. There is like this Altamont commuter express train that I've seen now and then that gets you all the way, that connects all the way to like Stockton, but I don't think too many people use that.
So at some point, the East Bay goes from upper class, successful, or upper middle class, nice family community, and then you get into San Leandro, and then it just straight turns ghetto at like 121st Street or something. Like, it's like where San Leandro and Oakland kind of overlap. It turns pretty bad pretty fast.
Yeah, I'd say that's right around where it gets a little bit rough. There are definitely some parts of Oakland where, I mean, it's like, you're just amazed, like, going by an underpass, how much trash is there. Like, just people's garbage that never made it to a dump. And obviously a lot of homeless encampments, things like that. There are some parts of Oakland that don't deserve such a bad rep. Like the area around Rockridge up by the border with Berkeley is pretty darn nice.
Yeah. And
then there's some areas out in the Oakland Hills which are cool. And then if you can afford Jack London Square, that's a pretty good area as well.
Yeah. Oakland to me is one of the worst places I've ever been overall. It's just so vastly run down and lawless.
Sorry, I got
Is somebody vacuuming? Is that a vacuum cleaner above you, or a leaf blower?
Sounds like a leaf blower.
Okay.
We got yard work outside. Should be all done in just a moment. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. Well, go on and tell your lawn person you're on YouTube, and maybe he'll get.
Unfortunately, window is right there, and it's not a very soundproof room.
No, I'm just messing with it. Where do you live now?
South San Francisco.
Okay. Well, so tell me about. Okay, so I understand the Silicon Valley. I've been through all of that. Anything from Palo Alto and Atherton and Menlo Park and all the fancy stuff down there, Mountain View and all that. And then at some point you get into San Mateo, where it transitions into, I want to say Millbrae, Burlingame.
Yeah.
How would you describe San Mateo, Millbrae, Burlingame as you get closer to South San Francisco?
That's really my area. Like, I spent about 14 years in Burlingame. I've basically always lived within 15 minutes of SFO Airport, so San Mateo's largely pretty nice. There's one little area called Shoreview that's a little less nice. Got a little bit of a rougher area, but it's like 2 blocks, and it's just, kids that are from San Mateo can act tough because their neighborhood, their city has 2 blocks that are rough. But San Mateo's pretty nice, very diverse between white, Asian, Hispanic, etc. The tech industry is definitely swept in as well, to the point where most people, like, if you went through an elementary school classroom and asked kids what their parents' jobs are, a whole lot of them would be tech at this point. There's definitely much less variety in the job market. Burlingame's gotten super upscale and overpriced. Almost an extension of Hillsborough. Hillsborough is one of the richest places in the country, like with 10,000 or more people. Like, Ricky Henderson has a place there. I think Steph Curry's over in Atherton, but wouldn't be surprised if other notable people have places in Hillsborough. Like, 99% sure Barry Bonds has or had a place there. A lot of CEOs and stuff. Hillsborough and Atherton are pretty similar in that regard, just one's a little bit farther south. Millbrae is very heavily Asian, huge Chinese population. Like, on some maps in Asia, usually you see cities with huge populations. Millbrae's listed on some of the maps because so many people have family in Millbrae. Like, it's a very real stereotype. There is a huge Asian population in Millbrae. If you go down El Camino, the main street in Millbrae, you can count more than 30 Chinese restaurants in a 2-mile stretch. Mm-hmm. A lot of which are really good.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds delicious. Okay. And then as you get closer into clearly the south side of San Francisco is going to be the less wealthy and built up as the north end of the peninsula then, right? Like as you get more northern, it gets wealthier and more elite, except for the Tenderloin.
Yeah, I mean, like as for the south end of San Francisco, like Bayview and Visitation Valley are pretty rough. Hunters Point is rough, but like Ingleside's not bad. The area around SF State, Lake Merced, nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. And then, like, if you're looking for places that are like comfortable to live, like Richmond District, Sunset District, pretty nice areas. And then, like, if you can somehow afford it, Diamond Heights, the area around Twin Peaks, really nice, but good luck affording that. Mm-hmm. And obviously, I know you've done stuff on Pacific Heights as well. It's pretty nice. Yeah,
but that's out of touch for most people.
Yeah, Diamond Heights is pretty out of touch for a lot of people too, or like St. Francis Wood, another area that's pretty hard to afford.
So if a family, let's say there's a family that is wanting to move to the Bay Area in particular, not Northern California, and they had they could afford it, not elite family, but somebody that thinks they can afford to live in the Bay Area, would you say the East Bay and like the like over by like Hayward-ish would be a good place, or like the Burlingame area? Like, where's a safe, affordable, where's the last safe, affordable places in the Bay Area?
There's some parts of San Mateo maybe, and even that's a little tough to afford. I'd say San Bruno. San Bruno's a pretty reasonable one compared to a lot of the others. South City as well. Yeah, out in the East Bay, like Hayward, the schools for the most part aren't great. There are a couple that are all right, but if you're looking, from a family perspective, I'd say San Bruno's probably what you're looking for. If you're looking at the kind of like that happy intersection of price and things like that.
Mm-hmm. So everything else that's over there across the bay, Fremont, Pleasanton, all the way up to Walnut Creek, that's all just way too expensive.
Fremont, you might be able to find something because it's so big. Fremont, Newark, Union City, you might be able to find something. Union City's okay. Mm-hmm. Fremont's definitely pretty nice.
But everything on the South Bay is just going to be way too expensive in Silicon Valley, like down Palo Alto all the way up. And like
Palo Alto, Mountain View, Cupertino.
All that's just that's just completely out of
Milpitas, you can probably find something affordable.
And are you looking to move and need advice? I do consulting. That's right. I'll sit down and talk about where the next perfect place for you and your family should be. I do it all the time. Together, let's find you a new home that's safe and checks all your boxes. You can get my email in the description to find out how I can help you find your perfect relocation. And I can also help you find your new house too. Email me and I'll work with you on not just helping you figure out where to move, but I can help you find your perfect home too. That's right. Someone's a realtor now. Who wants to deal with a realtor they don't know when you can have me help you, right? Hey guys, if you learned something new about America or what it's like to live in America, great. You should think about subscribing and turning on your notifications. You can also click one of these videos or playlists for more. You can also now buy my songs on iTunes and other formats. Click the link in the description. Thanks for watching. And remember, while we all might have different views, we should all be nice to each other and try to make the U.S. a better place in a positive way.
This is Sage, Nick's manager. This has been a Corner House Entertainment production.